Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
Even in a zone coverage, without getting like technical, but you know, they're going to line, if they're in nickel defense, right? They have an extra DB. They're going to line that nickel to the passing strength more often than not. And the last drive of the Super Bowl, if you watch, we had several plays where Cooper Kupp was aligned over to the tight end side away from the passing strength. So if you're in a zone defense, then you've got a linebacker matching that guy. So just the ability to be able to move those guys when you want to and get them in the spots where they can be most effective is huge.
Wow.
Football.
Wow.
I know. Can you believe that?
Football, yeah! Football! Football!
From a coordinator?
I love how he goes, I'm not going to get all technical, but
nickel, dime, bracket.
And I'm like, why not, dude? Go. It's great.
And he got very technical. And thank you for that.
Exactly.
Third generation Phillips football coach.
Amen.
Whew. All right. Need a shower after that. This is Purple Daily, daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. It's time. It's been 60 years. We reject 500 football on this show. And no matter what you watch, the show, by the way, presented by TCL and Surly Brewing Company. And speaking of TCL, no matter what you watch, TCL has award-winning TVs for any budget, any space, all with stunning picture quality. Thank you guys for sending in pictures of your TCL TVs. We love it. Show us your sets. Just tweet them to us, little pictures. TCL makes more than just TVs. They offer mobile products, audio devices, home appliances, etc. TCL.com is a place to learn more. So we've done our record predictions. We did our first official record prediction after we found out what the actual schedule is going to be. And I had him at 9. Declan had him at 10. Judd had him at 8 wins. And, you know, a lot of people think we're, especially Judd, being too negative there potentially. But a lot of the Vegas sports books like Caesars and even DraftKings, they've got the over-under in that 8.5 to 9 win range. I think I might have saw a 9.5 somewhere. But it's all kind of in that range of like 8, 9, 10 wins. Here's my question for you guys on today's show, however. Let's talk about the best case scenario. If a bunch of things go right, and I don't know if it's realistic to expect that everything goes right, because that's not how the NFL works. You're supposed to overcome some injuries and some adversity, etc. But let's talk about what's possible for the 2022 Minnesota Vikings. So I'll just ask an open-ended, broad question, and then I do think we should narrow down with like some sort of win-loss total. But what does the best-case scenario look like for the 2022 Minnesota Vikings?
So you sent out this question this morning or last night, and I've been thinking about it because, like, what does that mean? Because, like, fans will be, well, Phil, a Super Bowl, you dummy, a Super Bowl title. But I thought about it, and I thought to myself, to your point, what leads to best case potentially? And so I personally came up with 5 things, with 5 like different things that if they fall into place will be absolutely imperative and huge to the potential success of this team. Yes. I eliminated Kirk because Kirk is like, he, you know, if Kirk gets hurt or something, you're probably screwed, right? So like, you know, Kirk has to play well. Well, no kidding, Judd. That's stupid. So I could give you right now 5 things that I think have to take place for this team to optimize its potential to potentially win the North for the first time in about 4 years. Do you want them?
I want them. And then at the end, then paint us a picture. Okay. You know, artist Judd of, okay, if all these things click, what does it look like?
Finger painting.
Or jazz hands. I don't know what these are. Is it finger painting or jazz hands? I don't know.
Well, mine would be because I'm just bad at art. So that's a whole nother story. All right. Number one of things that would have to be optimized for the Vikings to be as successful and, in my opinion, slightly surprising as possible. This is a no duh, but it's incredibly important. Danielle Hunter and Za'Darius Smith both have to play 17 games, or at least like 15. Mm-hmm. Both are questionable as far as their problems with injuries go. Smith coming off a back problem. Hunter missed all of 2020 after having neck surgery and then got hurt in, I think, the 6th game against Dallas last year. But if you think about this, okay, these two guys, I don't believe were questionable players as far as talents go. So it's like, if they play, I think they're going to be good.
Yeah.
So it's not like, well, I'm worried that Danielle's getting really old. He's not. So if those two, because if they go out, I'm not saying the Vikings don't have backups, but like the drop off is probably huge. And that's not an indictment against the backups. That's a praise for what these two can potentially bring. So I think as far as the turnaround defensively, and by the way, if Hunter doesn't get hurt, last year's defense, it might not have been great, but it's not as bad as it statistically landed. So I think that's the first thing. Like, I think they can be dominant together.
They were like, God, if you look at the weeks, the first 6 or 7 weeks, they were number 1 in pressures, number 1 in sacks.
Yep.
And I think yards per play, they were top half of the league. It was very much getting back to what we have come to expect with Mike Zimmer defenses. And then Danielle Hunter gets hurt.
And so those two together, I think, could be a nightmare. My second thing, this is more of a question mark too, because it's not really health. It's just a question mark. In the 3-4 defense that the Vikings are going to use as their base defense in 2022, can Eric Kendricks thrive? And he's coming off a rough year. And he previously, before that, had been good. And I don't know if he was banged up. I don't know if there was things behind the scenes. I don't know what. But I think that the one linebacker that this team probably really needs to thrive is Kendricks. And to me, that's a wild card. But if he can step in and return to any semblance of the guy that we saw for quite a while before 2021, that is a huge bonus. Absolutely enormous.
Kind of seems like not a make or break season, but like a career defining season for Kendricks, right? Like he's 30 years old. He's been arguably kind of under the radar, but legitimately one of the better linebackers in football the last 5 years since he entered the league. And last year, production hit a cliff. Analytically, he was kind of a disaster. And is there something that can be used out of him that wasn't being used in Mike Zimmer's defense that unlocks the next level to his game? Because he's still 30. Yes, it's he's entering those not twilight years, but the overside of the hill, on the other side of the hill of his football career. But does he still have 3 or 4 more years left in him? And I feel like this is kind of like that career-defining season.
These are kind of once you get to be in your early 30s, you can call that twilight years for a linebacker. Yeah. It's hard for fans to hear that because, God, time flies. Eric Kendricks hasn't been in the league that long. He's been in the league for like 8 years. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you get to your early 30s and there's certain positions, linebacker, running back, quarterback, early 30s, you are just getting started.
Yep, you're right.
Safety, you can play a long time still. There's even edge rushers that can still play into their 30s, just kind of in specialized roles, right? I mean, Everson Griffin was still pretty effective in a specialized role. But linebacker, you are right in the middle of the field. You are exposed. You got to be able to cover from the middle of the field to the sideline, and there's nowhere to hide when you're an aging linebacker, unfortunately.
So that is my second thing. My third thing, offensively, and I realize this is a huge question mark, and every time I tweet about this guy, I feel like the response is, well, let's see if he can stay healthy. But my third thing is this. Irv Smith, in my opinion, to maximize the Vikings' 2022 success, needs to be third on the team in receptions. Jefferson's 1, Thielen's 2. So O'Connell's going to bring a lot of the tenets that he learned and had from the Rams and McVay. But I'm going to say this for him. I think he's got some different ideas too. And I think he's got ideas that the Rams didn't necessarily prioritize and therefore capitalize on. I'm going to go back to what I saw. In training camp last year, Irv Smith was sitting on a huge year. Like he is a safety blanket. He is a hybrid tight end receiver. And I really think that if he can play, again, 16 or 17 games, he will finish third on this team in receptions, and it will be huge to the success of Kirk Cousins. So Irv Smith, to me, becomes an incredibly important, because for all we talk up, well, KJ Osborne's there, and KJ Osborne's this and that. You know what? KJ Osborne, to his credit, found a great role last year. But if I have them both healthy, and I have my druthers of who are you going to lean on? Like, are you going to ask KJ, I need a lot more, or Irv, I need more? My answer is Irv Smith. So I think his health is huge.
When you lay it out that way, in terms of, okay, we know who the top 2 targets should be, but if you're going to ask, okay, who can we get more out of? I actually think that there is more to get out of KJ Osborne because he's still so young. But your point about Irv Smith is valid, that there's more untapped there that we haven't seen in his career. I think one of the biggest questions off that is going to be, to what extent does Kevin O'Connell deviate from some of the things they were doing in Los Angeles and tweak it to the personnel, right? And I say this, Tyler Higbee was the starting tight end for the Rams last year. And he caught 61 passes. It's funny, he actually finished second on the team in receptions and third in targets. But overall, they targeted receivers more than basically any team in the NFL.
Right.
So Higbee was a big part of. He was just a great safety blanket for Matthew Stafford. Irv Smith, I think, is more explosive and better than Tyler Higbee. So if you take that Tyler Higbee role, does it get enhanced even more because you have a weapon like Irv Smith? I'd say the same thing about the running backs too. You can say, well, they don't really throw the ball to the running backs much over in Los Angeles. Well, that's because they have a platoon of like 2 or 3 guys that are not Dalvin Cook. So is he going to find ways to get the ball more to Irv Smith, Dalvin Cook, than maybe the system showed in Los Angeles the last couple of years?
Just a small tease. I can tell you unequivocally, the answer is yes. There are things, without getting into specifics, because I don't want to betray confidences.
Whoa.
I can tell you right now.
Is this reporter Judd making an appearance here?
I'm just telling you, football Judd. I've been around, okay? I'm just going to tell you right now, there are elements of this roster that KOC really likes that they didn't have the same type of personnel with the Rams. I can tell you that.
Okay, I have a hot take question here, and we'll continue down this best case scenario.
Sure.
I know the Rams won the Super Bowl, and their offense was great at times, and they have great weapons, Cooper Kupp, and they had freaking Odell Beckham Jr. down the stretch, right? Does this Vikings team have better offensive weapons than that Rams team?
At certain places, it for sure does.
I think they might.
No question about it. I mean, at certain positions, yes, without a doubt, right?
I mean, Robert Woods and Van Jefferson, they ran deeper at wide receiver.
They have more depth.
But when you look at, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen at the top, and then Irv Smith, and Dalvin Cook is certainly better than Henderson and Sony Michel, they might have better weapons.
Let's just say, I also think that Kevin O'Connell is smart enough to know that teams will spend time watching Rams film to try and guess what he will do. And if you are, it's always about what, you guys, in sports. It is always the adjustment to the adjustment. And if you come out and throw a curveball first, guess what? Teams are surprised. I'm just telling you, he's going to do some things. The Vikings have some depth and personnel that I think the Rams lacked, and we're going to see. This guy might, I have no idea if he's going to be, just to be very clear, successful, but he has ideas. And keep in mind, too, he didn't call plays. Like, he learned. And I'm not saying that he was not an important part of McVay's staff, but he now has the keys to the car.
I love cryptic reporter Judd coming in, just
poking
his head in the room, being like, just so
there's
you
some
guys
things
know.
there's no reason to betray confidences, okay?
That's fine. Okay.
That's all I'm going to say. And it's not a big enough deal to get into specifics.
Okay.
It's more the fact that I think this guy is smart, and he knows he's got players that probably the Rams didn't prioritize or have.
That's fair.
All right, my fourth thing is this, and it's a no duh, but I came with the statistics just to present what this means, okay? It truly has to happen that Justin Jefferson becomes Cooper Kupp. And now you're like, oh yeah, of course it does, Judd. But just to go back on, and Jefferson's first 2 years, I think, are statistically historical, okay? Justin Jefferson in 2021, 108 catches, 1,616 yards, 10 touchdowns, 167 targets. Cooper Kupp, same season, 145 catches, 1,947 yards, 16 touchdowns, 191 targets. So, like, it's simple to say, well, of course, Jefferson's got to be that guy. But I just read you the receptions for Kupp, the yardage for Kupp, and the touchdowns for Kupp led the National Football League. Every one of those stats.
And Jefferson's better.
Yeah.
I think.
But I just think this.
No disrespect. I just think he's
But
better.
when I give you those stats, that's what has to happen.
Yep. And so the difference is scheme and quarterback and probably some just higher level offensive line play that gives more opportunities to hunt down the field, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. And then what's your fifth category?
My fifth one is this. Some debate, but I think it's important. And I'm not being a smartass. Garrett Bradbury has to shock us. Garrett Bradbury has to be good. I mean, he can't get trucked. He has to be good. Cleveland at left guard, I think is solid. I think we're assuming that the right guard is improved, but we don't know by how much. And, you know, since he was taken, the center and pass protection, I think it's fair to say, unfortunately, has been a liability. Mm-hmm. He has to be good. Because if you're getting Kirk blown up from the inside consistently, a lot of what I just talked about gets to be a lot tougher.
I got blown up from the inside with some sauerkraut hot dogs I ordered off Bite Squad yesterday.
I'd like to apologize for it. That was my fault.
Always have to have a good hot dog party on Memorial Day weekend.
The Garrett Bradbury of digestive systems. It should have been a fifth round pick.
Yeah, but I usually put my digestive system in places to succeed. Okay, I know.
In defense, yeah. In defense of Phil, I also dabbled into some brats and kraut over the weekend because it was Memorial Day weekend. And let's just say, getting home from the cabin yesterday, it was no more thankful place to be than on the can. You have to be there. Okay?
That's right. Okay, so with all those categories of things that, if they go right in those categories, or mostly right, what's the best case scenario? What can they do record-wise? What can they do in the postseason?
I think realistically, without being completely pie in the sky, they can win 12 games, if not 13, but let's just say 12 games. And I think they can get to, best case, I would get them to the conference championship game. I can't go Super Bowl. I just can't do it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you and I are seeing this very similarly. I'm gonna give you here. I think you missed some categories though. I think there's
entirely possible.
There's a couple categories here. So I had a few. You know, I had the health category, and I'd put Thielen in there too because he's been banged up at times. But Danielle, Za'Darius, Dalvin, those are the obvious ones. I think Father Time you touched on, and just some of these aging players, they can't all go over the age cliff at the same time. You know, KOC driving the offense schematically from 14th in scoring last year to something closer to top 5. So I have all those, but I have a couple other categories for you, and then I'll give you my best case scenario as well. But let's shout out. In fact, looks like you got a little coffee mug in front of you there, shouting out our friends at Folly.
That's exactly right.
Coffee drinkers.
Exactly right. And from the guy who told you to drink beer local, right? I am now telling you to do the same. You know, don't support these coffee guys who come in, these out-of-towners. Folly in town. It's a company that is based here with the simple mission of providing the best coffee available, named the best online coffee retailer in the state. Fully customizable coffee subscription to match how much coffee you drink and your favorite flavors. Go to Folly Coffee, that's FOLLY coffee.com. Use the code word SCORE, SKOR at checkout for 10% off your initial order. So again, Folly Coffee, FOLLY coffee.com, code word SCORE, SKOR, 10% off. And I'm going to tell you right now, I believe this is my third week. Folly Coffee delivers smooth. So if you enjoy coffee, again, it comes right to your door too, follycoffee.com.
Love them. Also, we discovered collectively the best and easiest way to play fantasy sports here on Purple Daily and Score North to get a sweat on games. It's called Underdog Fantasy and the Underdog Fantasy app. So there's a couple different categories here of note. There's sort of the draft bin where you draft players and rosters. You draft a team in minutes for, there's a bunch of hockey games and basketball games of note this week. Got golf tournaments all over the place. And you pit your lineup up against others, and you have a chance to win some guaranteed prize pools in Underdog. It's great. There's also the Pick'em games, which allows you to win up to 20 times your money in one night by picking over or under on your player's favorite stats to win big. You can pick between 2 and 5 players. You can sweat players you don't You can sweat players you like. You can fade players you don't like. And it's so easy, Judd can use it. He's been all over Underdog Fantasy's app. It's a blast. You can support us by entering the promo code SCORE, SKOR, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. $100 in bonus cash for you through the Underdog Fantasy app, boys. So we love this thing. It's been a blast.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Oh, Declan's been on there.
Dex is a
with
madman on it.
Golf tournaments and stuff.
Yeah, every week, every day.
Awesome.
That's all I do.
So Vikings best case scenario.
Yes.
You covered all those great categories. I'm going to give you another category called the schedule. All right. It's a very manageable schedule on paper right now, and that you have, let's go through some of these things. 9 home games, 7 true road games only, and 1 neutral site game. I mean, how many years are you going to get? This is the first time in Vikings history that you've had 2 more true home games than road games in a season. What an advantage. So that's great. Also, the way that the schedule's lined up, it's not ideal to have to go on the road in the division in cold weather cities at the end, back-to-back weeks 17 and 18. However, from November 13th through January 1st, so almost a full 2-month stretch, the Vikings play 1 road game, and it's at Detroit. So you get into the middle of your season, you're starting to get a little tired, you've had your bye week, and you play almost exclusively home games from November 3rd, the middle of November all the way through January 1st. Sleep in your own bed, and the one trip you make is to Detroit. So that's very favorable. And then in terms of the actual opponents, out of the 17 games you play, the Vikings face only, or I should phrase it this way. The Vikings play only 5 games against quarterbacks who finished in the top 10 of ESPN's QBR last year. That's it. So you play 12 games against quarterbacks who finished outside of the top 10 in ESPN's QBR. I think you'd take that. Aaron Rodgers twice. Josh Allen's in there. Kyler Murray finished in the top 10. I think Dak was in there. I might be missing. I can't remember. Oh, you know who? Carson Wentz actually finished 10th in QBR last year. He had some epic mistakes down the stretch, but overall he was actually very good for Indianapolis. Maybe a bad locker room guy. But I'll take another way to phrase this is, of those 5 games, 1 is against Carson Wentz. So you have a very advantageous opposing quarterback schedule here. And let me throw another category at you, which is the boost that you get from a refreshing new voice who knows what he's doing offensively after getting rid of the stale coach. Sean McVay in 2017 is the ultimate example, in that the Rams replaced stale Jeff Fisher and went from 4 wins to 11 overnight under Sean McVay. And even before the 4-win season that got Jeff Fisher fired, they were just stuck in 7-9 land. I think they went 7-9 3 out of 4 years or something, which is pretty much where the Vikings are at. They're 7-8-9 win land. And you bring the new, fresh-faced, great communicating, young offensive-minded whiz, right? And McVay is a future Hall of Famer, so it's hard to just compare everything to McVay. But that's the tree that the Vikings are poaching from here. So they go from 4 wins to 11. They go to a Super Bowl in year 2. And in that first year, this is nuts, the Rams were dead last in offensive scoring in Jeff Fisher's last year. They went from 32nd to 1st overnight. Same quarterback. Mostly, it wasn't like they overhauled the whole roster. They made some changes. But they just brought in a new, better communicator, guy that connects with the team, guy who sees modern offensive football. And they went from 32nd in scoring to 1st with Jared Goff both seasons. Sit on that for a second. That's amazing.
Yeah. But but you know what? It sounds like with Kirk, right?
Well, we're not even asking for that lead. We're asking for go from 14th to 6th, Yeah. That'd be great.
Yeah, you're right.
The other example I'll give you is another one that the Vikings flirted with here a few months ago, Jim Harbaugh. So Jim Harbaugh took over from Mike Singletary, old stale, curmudgeonly Mike Singletary. 2011, just a weirdo. That guy was...
Yeah.
How's he doing commercials? Who's his agent? He was doing commercials for someone this... I was like, who is Mike Singletary's agent?
Yeah,
guy hasn't blinked since the 70s.
No.
Still getting a run.
Yeah.
So they replace Mike Singletary with Jim Harbaugh, and the 49ers go from 6 wins to 13 overnight. They go to a Super Bowl just like McVay in year 2. And the Rams offense, people think of Jim Harbaugh because those teams are more defensive-minded, but Jim Harbaugh was an offensive guy, right? Former NFL quarterback, etc. And he ran a little bit more of a smash-mouth offensive scheme, but they quickly adjusted with Colin Kaepernick to the zone read system. Very nimble offensive coach. But they went from 24th to 11th in offensive scoring in that first year with Alex Smith as the starting quarterback. And the defense jumped from like mid-pack into the top 5. So it is possible, if you get the right guy, that if the old guy was just completely burnt out and the team didn't want to hear from him anymore, and you nail that next coach and you get that guy that can bring in offensive innovation, that would be the best case scenario. And so I think, like Judd, there is a universe in which the Vikings finish with 12 wins, like a 12-5 season. They win the division. And I think there's a universe in which if they do those things, they win 12 games and they win the division, that they play a couple home playoff games and they win a couple home playoff games and they maybe make it to the NFC Championship game. I have a hard time in year 1, even if everything goes right, putting a brand new head coach in the Super Bowl and Kirk Cousins in the Super Bowl.
Right.
But could they win 12 games, host a couple playoff games, get deep? Yes. I think there's a universe in which that happens. There you go. That's right.
That.
Well, yeah, it sounds pie in the sky, but yeah, I mean, it makes some sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we need to see clearly a lot more things, including if the quarterback truly can thrive and start to win games consistently. But that being said, yeah, and I mean, there is no question that there is a very different atmosphere there now. Like, this team was miserable last year. You'd go to a training camp practice and the air was thick, and it was not humid. It was thick because it was miserable. Like, everybody was miserable, including Mike. So, yes, if everything goes right and the guys who should thrive, including Kirk, thrive, I mean, what you're saying has potential. Okay. It at least has potential.
All right, Dex, are we crazy? Are we shooting too low here in terms of Vikings' best case scenario?
No, if we're talking best case scenarios, I think all the things we're talking about are achievable. I would say that the last thing that really we haven't touched on is winning the division. I mean, that is a best case scenario if you won this division. And Judd doesn't want to talk about Packers falling off a cliff. I get that. A lot of people shouldn't be. I mean, I get it. When the hell is that team going to do it?
Way too quick to predict the Packers' demise.
Yeah. That would be terrible.
But that is a best case scenario. It's not just sneaking in, as the 6th or 7th seed. A best case scenario would be winning the whole North and getting a home playoff game on Wild Card weekend and possibly beyond, right? So I think that's the only thing we haven't touched on. But in terms of Jefferson exploding, guys like Danielle Hunter and Za'Darius Smith staying healthy, yeah, those are best case scenarios. As your voice of reason here, I think you're actually, shockingly, both of you, very reasonable here.
Yeah.
Very, very fine.
I think, there's, and we should do the other episode too here at some point, which is what's the worst case scenario. I'm sure people will love taking that.
O'Connell has no idea what he's doing. I can't really coach. I just kidding.
Well, let me ask this. Like, we're all projecting the best case scenario for O'Connell until he proves otherwise. Like, there's no reason not to at least give the guy a shot. Mm-hmm. What's the % chance? You've been around him a little bit now, out at some of these practices, and what's the % chance that he's just a terrible hire? Like, it just has no idea what he's doing. It seems pretty low based on his background and communication style.
Ooh, yeah. I think the one thing that you don't know until you see it in action behind the scenes is, because you don't want to be Mike, but you do have to control things, right?
Yeah, like when conflict arises or something.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have times where guys are going to be arrested. I mean, things are going to take place. I guess that's my question, because we just don't know that one. Like, do I think he's a smart football X's and O's guy? Absolutely. Do I think that he knows what he's doing play calling wise? Sure seems like it. But when something goes really wrong, can he step up and say, okay, now I'm going to have to take control? And that's the one that we have no clue until it's actually presented. Because as OC of the Rams, you don't have to. Like there's nothing that where McVay is going to tell KOC, hey dude, take this one.
Yeah, that's
my question.
You're not really put in a position to play bad cop, even though you're going to have to at some point. And he seems like such a likable, agreeable guy too. I mean, even just watching that the Vikings posted a 20-minute video of behind the scenes of draft weekend, and there was a lot of great footage of just the war room and Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi sitting next to each other and the Wilfs on the first day and everything that the Vikings did, KOC was finding that positive, which is a totally different feel and vibe, right? It was, this is a great trade.
Why are we taking Kellen Mond, Rick?
I love
what the hell
this
are you
trade.
doing?
Yeah.
Take
I love this trade. Yeah, did the Vikings not put out the same 20-minute behind-the-scenes draft thing as last year?
I'd pay for it. I would write a check. I would send in my credit card information right now to see behind the scenes the last year of Rick and Mike.
They should do that. Vikings Entertainment Network. I would pay like $20 a month just to get the arguments, the fights. Show me footage of a coach getting fired mid-season by angry Mike Zimmer.
Why are you taking him on? What are you doing?
Be amazing. Well, like Hard Knocks probably has all sorts of footage like that they just how much footage gets captured too by team media and they just have to sit on it and keep their mouths shut. Do internal employees have to sign NDAs that hey, you're going to film some stuff here that
I think that might be in the contracts.
Totally is.
I think that's in the contract.
I used to have a friend. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Dex.
I was going to say the fascinating thing about being in locker rooms, what I've always noticed, especially the Vikings specifically, was how right after the presser would finish, and if we went back from the locker room to the press conference, then back in the locker room, you'd see Rick immediately there with the computer observing the press conference clips. Like he'd be just examining. They would have some intern literally holding up a laptop to Rick Spielman, and then he would be sitting there intently watching with headphones on, like observing the press conference. I always
like Mike Zimmer's press conference, or
yes. Yeah, or Kirk's or whoever went. But like, yeah, he would always be, and I found that so fascinating. That was just kind of like also, he was doing that like in broad daylight in the locker room. I always thought that was weird.
Kind of weird. Is that pertinent information for him immediately after the game is over? Or is that just something you can maybe do later that night?
You want to know what Mike said because Mike was probably concerned about it. Because Mike, and my guess is, at first, at least, he hoped that his presence might cause Mike not to go off the deep end as consistently, but of course that didn't work. And which is why I would pay for the last year of Rick and Mike. God, what a great divorce!
Rick and Mike.
They should Rick do that.
Coming to Hulu.
Yeah, Minnesota Vikings, The Divorce.
Dude,
just an 8-part series on their YouTube channel.
I'd pay a good amount. I'd pay a good amount of money for it.
Ziggy and Mark firing Mike and Mike storming out and then telling Rick, "Yeah, you're fired too."
Get that footage on the private jet going from New Jersey to Minneapolis the morning that they were going to fire Rick.
I mean, forget the NFL Films presents how the Vikings took their first round pick. Screw that.
So I have a friend who used to work at Nobu in Los Angeles. I've never been to a Nobu, but isn't it? It's like high-end sushi place. Okay. And this is a place in LA where celebrities go, NBA players go all the time. And he used to work there. And they make every employee who works there sign a non-disclosure agreement that you can't talk about anything you see inside Nobu publicly. So if you see, Leo DiCaprio come in and get sloshed and cheat on his wife or something, you have signed an NDA that says you can't, what happens inside Nobu stays inside Nobu.
That's incredible.
That's why they're called sources.
That's
why you got to find out who broke the NDA.
That's why TMZ has a budget. Exactly. Mm-hmm. We have some other stuff to get to, including what are people saying about the Vikings. But let's talk about our friends who have made Judd a skinnier version of himself.
That's exactly right. Down 40 pounds. Thanks to my friends at Livia Weight Control Centers. And I want you to join me now for summer. Drop the weight with their new Simple Start plan. Only $59. That's right. $59 to start. You get one-on-one personalized and guided support online or in person from their team of experts. So if you're in town, that's great. But if you're not in the state, because we certainly know that a lot of you, and we appreciate it, watch us from outside the state, you can join too. It's this simple. Go call 855-GO-LIVEA, livia.com, livea.com. And the best part is it starts with the weight coming off and it continues with the maintenance phase. The coaching, the dietitians, it's outstanding. It's not hard. 855 go LIVEA or livia.com. Check them out today.
And a lot of people think, oh, if you're going to lose weight, you can't eat or do anything fun. Well, Judd still drinks beer. You can still do both. It's called balance.
Exactly right. It's called moderation and balance. And ordinarily, I'm very good at that. But I'll tell you right now. So this weekend, I delved into some of the Surly Brewing summer products. Oh my God, are they delicious? Absolutely. They're light. They're
Fruit
fantastic.
forward, baby.
Yes, exactly right.
Bring it on.
And right now, in fact, I'm going to look up the name of this because I've got it right here because I took a picture of this at the liquor store a couple days ago because it looks so good. The Hop Stop pack of 4 beers, of 4 Surly Brewing products, all of them fantastic. Check them out. Surly Brewing, a long-standing sponsor now of this show in Score North. We certainly appreciate them, but their product, local and outstanding.
Sad news over the weekend before we get to what are people saying about the Vikings. First round pick in 2020, Jeff Gladney was killed in a car accident early Monday morning. So yesterday morning, his agent, Brian Overstreet, confirmed to the media, 25 years old. You know, we know the whole thing that went down with the Vikings wound up releasing him through the legal troubles. And then this happens. And the quote from the agent is, we're asking for prayers for the family and privacy at this most difficult time. According to reports, the fatal crash happened around 2:30 a.m. in the westbound service lanes of a freeway in Dallas. The cause of the crash remains under investigation. A female passenger also died in the crash, according to a source. 25 years old, just unspeakable tragedy. I don't even know what there is to say. It's just, It's really sad.
Awful. Absolutely terrible.
So I'm sure there'll be more details come out, but Jeff Gladney, 25 years old, passes away. The Vikings sent out some nice tributes on social media. I mean, it's just what do you say? You know,
and the Cardinals had signed him, correct?
Yeah, he was on the Cardinals roster.
Signed by the Cardinals, so yeah, it's absolutely awful.
Yep. What are people saying about the Minnesota Vikings? We try and scour the internet and social media and just find it's kind of fun to know what are the national media. This one comes from inside the house. The call is coming from inside the house here.
Get out.
Adam Thielen to Fox 9. So Fox 9 had a one-on-one with Adam Thielen. I found this on their YouTube channel. Yeah. And he said Kevin O'Connell's arrival has been a, quote, breath of fresh air. It's been great, Adam Thielen said. When you hear about the news of the new coach getting hired, you kind of look back at the track record and you look back at what they did and you're excited, right? But then you get in here, you start learning the system and you start getting on the field. Really, when you get on the field, you start running through stuff. You're like, man, this is fun. This is exciting. Kirk Cousins didn't feel that way, clearly, last week. Thielen's like, this is great. Oh, my God, what a breath of fresh air. Kirk's like, coaches don't matter. Systems are all the same.
Code words.
When I talk about a breath of fresh air and kind of rejuvenation, it's because when you get out here, it's like stuff makes sense and it's exciting. And I love this. Thielen. We have a great team. We have a great locker room. We have great coaches and we have great leadership. So we just got to make sure we keep working hard and keep gaining ground because there's a lot of learning. There's a lot of extra work, a lot of details we got to focus on right now that will help us in the long run. Okay, who do you believe more? Excited Adam Thielen talking about how the system makes sense and the coaches are great leaders and everything is great and it's all different? Or Kirk Cousins, who shrugged his shoulders at Judd and said, all systems are the same, it's just different languages?
Well, I think that Thielen at least knows what to say.
He's just breathing fun life. He's like, this is fun, this is great, it's a new beginning. He's excited.
And I do sense from a couple of trips out to watch the OTA practices that there is a rejuvenation. Like you feel that. It feels different. Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how miserable it felt in training camp last year. It was just apparent that nobody was having fun. And I'm sorry, pro sports or not, you can't not have any fun. So I think at least these quotes are the correct quotes. And I would say I believe him a bit more. Like, why would you?
Yes.
Kirk's response was so weird because things are changing. Like, they're running a new system. And so I still from our conversation about Kirk's quotes last week, I still don't get them. Like, I don't understand how you can't say, yeah, it's different.
It was a weird time to downplay things. This is a time of rebirth and excitement, and
But if I had to pick one, I believe I'm going to take Thielen as far as the fact that they do have to learn a lot. It's going to be changes, and ultimately, if it's executed correctly, the offensive changes are going to be for the better.
He's also, and Thielen too, I believe, is going on actually Pat McAfee this afternoon too to praise more positivity. So I'm curious to see what he says there as well.
Yeah, to drop a couple casual F-bombs and slam
like
a beer
Rodgers
after practice. Yeah. So I think I love it. It should feel this way. It should feel like a breath of fresh air and new. And obviously, if they get into the season and the system is not working or guys aren't picking it up quick enough, then there can be time for lamenting it. But this should feel like new and fun and exciting. It's the honeymoon stage of a new relationship offensively here.
Absolutely.
And I think everybody involved would say, yeah, this talent, I agree with Thielen. They do have a lot of talent on offense. They shouldn't be ranked 14th in scoring. Get someone in here. The key line in here for me is, it's like stuff makes sense and it's exciting. And you always compare to, okay, is he comparing it to, is he saying that the old system didn't make sense, or is he just saying that this system makes sense? I don't know. It's probably a little bit of both.
I think
I thought that was an interesting line.
I think a lot of things that they did last season did not make sense.
Agreed.
Like, I think that is, without a shadow of a doubt, I think that's a fair thing to say.
Yes.
Because the scripted plays did, right? Scripted plays, this is great. Vikings are going to be hot today. And then it's like, bang.
And imagine how great this team was with the scripted plays if they had an even better scheme and better coaches that are, even more adept at 2022 football, what those scripted plays could look like. But yeah, can they get better at the non-scripted stuff when, hey, the defense has made an adjustment, now it's our turn to adjust back. Speaking of things that make sense, raising money for great causes makes a lot of sense, and that's why Federated Insurance has been a huge backer of Big Brothers Big Sisters for the last 17 years through the Federated Challenge fundraiser. Over $44 million raised for Big Brothers Big Sisters. So we're talking about successful mentoring relationships here, looking for established people and established adults and professionals to mentor kids with bright futures that could just use a little extra help and influence in their lives through one-on-one relationships. There's 5,000 bigs right now in the state of Minnesota, and there's all sorts of kids waiting for more. So if you want to find out how you can contribute to the cause and maybe even be a big yourself, federatedchallenge.org. So, all right, we all got the Vikings if things play out well and everything pans out to the best possible extent. 12-plus wins, division, and championship Sunday.
Kevin O'Connell, Coach of the Year.
Fair. Well, if that happens, if they win 12 games, they would vote on it before the playoffs probably, right? But if they win the division in 12 games,
he'll have a great chance.
Yes, he will.
Best case.
All right, boys. Tomorrow, write that down, predictions and an accountability session. You can always hit us up through the Score North app and give us a follow. Score North on TikTok and Instagram, too, as we grow those. I think we're at 6,000 followers on TikTok now, over 10,000 on Instagram. So thank you guys for connecting with us on those platforms, too. We'll see you tomorrow. Daily Vikings Entertainment, Purple Daily.